computer.
All right.
Welcome to FileMakerTalk, nay ClarisTalk. My special guest today is Andy LeCates. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate being with you, man. It's been too long since we've seen each other in face-to-face.
Too long, for sure. I believe you and I are the only two people in the community with the title Platform Evangelist.
Really? That may be true. I think there are a few out there, but yeah, we're relatively few and far between. So
yeah, certainly very few. And yeah, you from inside Claris and me from outside. That's my title at Direct Impact Solutions.
Awesome.
Which is fun because I don't know, I've loved the platform since the beginning, just like you have. And which I think most importantly is about loving the current thing, but also still be able to go back and remember what it was like to run on that little Mac Plus you've got behind you, or 512 or whatever it is.
Which still works. Not a 128. I just don't have it plugged in. That is a plus, I believe. I think it's I forget how much memory is in it. It still works. It still boots. I just don't have it plugged in right now.
That's cool.
And it's a reminder of where technology was back then, because it takes a long time to boot up. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. My old business partner.
You are a fantastic evangelist, man. I know that you have the context and you have it, but I listened to your podcast and I thought the one that you guys did a crossover podcast recently, I believe, with Chris Hippolyte and Jeremy, and that was really good. I really enjoyed listening to you all, and I understand last night was a fantastic FileMaker feature fight club as well.
Oh yeah, it was good.
Thank you for all that you do. I just want to say that
we scheduled it very badly because last night was also the January 6th hearing. So
that's right.
Most people were watching that, but we had over 50 people on the in the fight club.
It sounded like a lot of fun. I wanted to make it myself. I had a conflict last night, but I look forward to recording. So.
Yeah, it was definitely was recorded, and that will be released. So let's talk about this. What I really want to talk to you about is the Claris Problem Solver Circle and Studio and all the new things coming up.
Yep.
Can you summarize?
I can summarize. Yeah. So we launched it now a month and a week ago, I think exactly on the 5th of May. And I think Pete and Brad and I did a presentation about a week before that to kind of introduce the concept. It is a program, not a promotion specifically, but a new program, a way to deliver our products to customers. And it's a little experimental, but it's a little different than kind of things we've done before. And the basic thesis of the program, the Problem Solver Circle, is to start with the knowledge, or start with the premise that our developers, whether a partner company or a developer in-house, are fundamentally critical to our go-to-market success, right? It's our developers who deliver the value. Brad said that last year in a keynote, that without the developers, we deliver nothing. There's no value. You get the platform with which to create it, and developers make that happen. So as we're thinking about how can we give developers essentially more space to do what developers do and create more value with the platform, one of the ideas that percolated up was this program. And so mechanically, the basic idea of the program is for customers that use our product and get some value from it, so they already have a license, but haven't yet used it maybe across their whole organization. They're solving a problem or a finite set of problems, but there's so much potential to do more. Can we make it maybe attractive for that customer to do it, and thus give the developer more stuff to do?
Right.
And so the program is, if you have a license with our platform, you can sign up for the program on a 2-year license and a bump in price of 30%. And we give you license for all of your employees. So it's a weird program in that it's relative to your existing footprint. So whether you have 10 seats or 25 seats or 50, the price will be different. It's relative to what you've already committed to, but it allows you to say, for a little bit more, I can now license everybody else in the company, and I can turn Matt loose, who's my developer in-house, right? And he can go and innovate all over the place. And the additional sort of program benefit is that the site license includes everything that we got. Right. So it's not just FileMaker. Yeah, it's FileMaker, but with Connect, you also get Connect standards, so you can use it and experiment with it, which you may not have already deployed. And additionally, as icing on the cake, we added a developer preview for the new Claris Studio technology that Pete announced back in April. I
want to talk a lot about that today. So
happy to.
Let me give 3 sort of test case scenarios. For a client that has 4 seats, or they have a 5-seat license of FileMaker, $900 a year, and they buy it every year, and they have 4 employees in the company, Problem Solver Circle is not really going to do anything for them.
Maybe not. Yeah. I mean, if they have like a burning desire to get their hooks into Claris Connect and maybe see what Claris Studio is
Yeah, that's
before we
true.
really roll it out,
Yeah, it's
they
not
may
burning.
decide that that's interesting. But no, you're correct. At a really small scale where I'm already saturated in my company with my licensing, it may not make sense for you, for sure.
Yeah, but if they have a public-facing WebDirect solution, then it would be a really good value. And then for another company, let's say there's a company with 25 seat license of FileMaker that has 100 employees.
Yep.
And there's a couple of other divisions that just haven't really justified getting FileMaker yet. That's kind of a slam dunk, obvious one to me, because now for a small bump in price from 25, basically like paying for a 30 seat license, they get all 100 employees covered and get a license for FileMaker, and they can deploy multiple servers.
Yeah. So your point is exactly right. One of our hypotheses on this particular program was that, yes, we want to give developer space to do more, but is our existing licensing an impediment to experimentation and expansion? Right. And if the customer has to think to themselves, well, yeah, I'd kind of like to go solve a problem in a new department, but I'm going to have to buy some new licenses. I don't know exactly what I want yet. It's just a friction that impedes that expansion. And so the program was like, let's get all that risk and uncertainty out of the way. Yes, we're asking for a little bit more. Your 25 seats now costs 33 seats or something for 2 years. But now, yes, all 100 employees, wherever in your organization you want to deploy, you can. So removing that friction now, why wouldn't you turn your developer loose to go build value?
It seems obvious. Then you have your larger example. Let's say you have a client with 1,000 seat license that has 50,000 or 100,000 employees, just a huge, like a state division kind of a thing.
Yep.
I think I actually came across one of those, and one of my clients, they didn't want to do it because they actually couldn't support that large number of users, right? So like if you let a bunch of these people have access to something that they didn't actually intend to buy, and they start using it, it could completely overwhelm your department, which is an odd but solid reason.
No, you're dead right. I believe we had one partner bring to us a customer that had a relatively small deployment in a department. It was like 50 seats, but the company had something like 60,000 employees. It was a big number.
Whoa. Yeah.
And we were all in. We're like, yeah, the program will support it. We're really not putting any limits on it. But the challenge was when we dug in on the customer also had pockets of licensing elsewhere, and they weren't all consolidated into one sort of central licensing thesis. And so for that particular customer, for their IT department and their CIO to understand how to bring all those licenses together and then adopt this, it was going to take weeks, maybe months, right? And so it just didn't make time sense for them to adequately be able to plan and deploy. So lesson learned, right? And that gives us some good information for the future to think about for those customers. So yeah, the math may not always be about the sort of multiplier effect, if you are the scale of seats that are potentially available. I think we're finding that although we're getting customers of every size, we do have a couple customers that are big enterprise, megacorp, and we have a lot of customers that are 5 to 25 seats as well, and a lot in between. There is definitely an emerging sweet spot for the program at like 100 seats to 1,000 seat, or I should say 100 employee to 1,000 employee customer sizes. And this supports something I think we've thought for a long time, that in that size of organization, the company is big enough to want to invest in technology to innovate and differentiate. But they're not so enormous that the pressures of governance within that organization are so big that it's just hard to get things done. Like they can be innovative and be a little more agile and quick. And that's actually bearing out in this program. We're getting some great customers in that particular sweet spot.
That completely makes sense. So let's talk a little bit more what it includes. So the first part is it's Claris Pro, not FileMaker Pro. That confused a lot of people, but since I'm actually in the program, I've been playing with it. It's basically a version of FileMaker that's pretty much identical to FileMaker 19.4, from what I can see, that is labeled FileMaker 20. If you go to the About menu.
You go to the About box,
But it has one amazing new feature, which is there's a built-in external data source, if you will, which is all the data tables that you have in Claris Studio. And so for no effort at all, every single database that you have is visible to you. All the data in those tables are visible to you and readable, as long as the user of the database is signed in to the with their FileMaker ID, right? Claris ID.
Right. True. So let me pause you for a second and back up, because we're about to commit a communications crime, I think. One thing that we've noticed, we have communicated so many things in the course of the last month, and a lot of our customers and partners are conflating the Problem Solver Circle program with the Claris Studio new technology, right? We do make the Claris Studio technology available as part of the program, but the program and that are different things. And so I just want to be clear on that before we confuse people more.
Right.
The real benefit of the program and the reason the program exists, and I will get back to your question, but the real reason that program exists is what we were talking about. It's to provide an open space for innovation, to unleash the developers and create value in an organization and implement a strategy of continuous improvement. It's the site license.
Right.
That's what we're doing, right? Then part of the site license is that we are making available, in addition to FileMaker and FileMaker, not rebranded Claris Pro, but FileMaker.
Right.
You have your current FileMaker license with FileMaker 19, and you have Connect, and you have a developer preview to the new stuff, which we're now calling the Claris branded.
Yeah, so I think there's sort of two conversations we're going to have right now, right? So the one other thing that you get is Claris Studio, Claris Connect, which a lot of people haven't gotten because the pricing was really sort of prohibitive to actually deploy it. Now that's included with Problem Solver Circle. And so I think a lot of people are going to start using it that haven't before, because now it's like, oh, it's there, it's just on and you can use it. So those are, I think, the core parts, which I agree are really going to enable a lot of these organizations to use FileMaker in an unrestricted way.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've heard loud and clear from a lot of customers that Claris Connect, the licensing appears prohibitive, and thus it is, again, an impediment to experimentation, right? Like, just let me get in there and learn how this thing works. And it can be, but note that the functionality that's built into Claris Connect, is relative to other enterprise integration platform as a service platforms, is rather competitive, but relative to some other integration services that are, just dirt cheap, it's not. So we get it. So yeah, we're curious to see how the Problem Solver participants really take advantage of Claris Connect over time, what it means to them, the value that they derive in their organization. And we do fundamentally believe that Connect and FileMaker together are a really powerful combination. And it's going to get even more powerful when Studio is in the mix as well, right?
Yeah,
when you have that expanded tool set. So to your comment, we agree. Like, we hope people just go to town with it and get a lot of value out of it. So.
Okay. So I think that kind of really ends the conversation on Claris Problem Solver Circle.
Okay.
Let's talk about
Studio.
The part two. So Studio, and I have some really pointed questions here. When I started playing with it, I was so ridiculously excited to see how easy it is to create a form, fill it out, have the data appear in a table, view all the data, be able to edit it, be able to modify forms, create a link to the form, make it public. I made a YouTube video showing how excited I was about all that, which you can go find.
Awesome.
But right now, the limitation is there's one table per form. And like I said a minute ago, if you open it up in Claris Pro, all of those tables appear. You can add them to your graph. You can make relationships to them, and we'll talk about that in a second too. Right. Really, you wouldn't do that. You would basically add a layout, and the data is at the moment read-only, which means Claris Pro cannot write data to it.
Correct.
The tables that are made in Claris Studio don't have ID fields or timestamp fields yet.
Right now, that's true. Yep.
And there's no other functionality like scripting or relationships, or pretty limited. It's like Google Forms light,
for sure,
sort of, in terms of what you can do.
So there's good elaboration on the capabilities that are there. I think the most important phrase you're using is "for now" or "at this time," right? Because what is in the developer preview, and it is a developer preview for a limited audience, which is the Problem Solver Circle right now. It is very much an MVL release, right? Or MVP release, a minimum viable product. And so, for anybody that's studied Agile, the classic diagram that shows to get to a car, you start with the skateboard, and then you build it out until you have something akin to a scooter, and then a bike, and then a car, right? This is the skateboard, right? We know. And we know that, the capabilities that you're talking about, the ability to do bidirectional. Pete has already committed, in webinars that, we're going to get to bidirectional. That's kind of important that we do that, right? If we want this to be really a functional tool that really works with the power of FileMaker and complements it, it has to be. So that kind of stuff, bidirectionality, things that go to relational modeling and ID fields and whatnot, those things they're in the backlog. They will come, and we believe they'll come rapidly, right? What we have to do first, there's a couple things I guess say. What we really have to do first is get the data model of the Studio platform really rigorously defined, the infrastructure for it, so that it is ready for us to then just fly with and develop into the future, right? And so I don't want to say all, but a lot of our efforts have been making sure that we get that right, so it's ready to harmonize with the FileMaker data engine, right? Because Pete had in the presentation we did back in April, like 4 North Stars or pillars, right? That he was really focused
that
on.
rubbed me the wrong way, by the way. There's only one North Star, but anyway, we can call them pillars.
Yeah, no, I was actually in a conversation with another developer a few days ago, I think, and they're like, go with pillars on this North Star. There can only be one North Star.
Yeah.
But you in Agile, you have your sort of bounding goals that you're going for while you are learning and iterating.
It must.
And one of them is that, so one of the rules or one of the pillars for us is that you have one data set that's available everywhere. And so right now, being unidirectional from CloudForms into FileMaker with all the limitations you express, we know it. And there will be certainly a lot more coming there. And I know Robert Holsey has been out talking to our partner community about that, and we're aware of it. But we also get a chance to hear what y'all yell about most, right? So we can help prioritize the most important things to fix as we evolve it forward. So we're getting some good learnings there.
I want to pause just briefly there on one thing, by the way, because we're talking about this data structure, right? And we haven't really talked about the connection from Claris Pro to the data in Studio. My friend Carl Jajiri, now at Soliant, did a bunch of research on that. He found that the mechanism that Claris Pro uses to connect to that is by far the ideal way, the best way that we've ever seen in a Claris product connecting to the data backend. It's nice. I can't remember what he named the technology, but do you happen to know?
I honestly, I don't. You're going deep under the hood to a place.
It's under the hood, yeah, because he's definitely an under the hood kind of guy. So basically, if you think about the way FileMaker Pro connects to Draco, we know about a lot of inefficiencies and chattiness and whatnot, and we also know a lot about other things like SQL sources and all the problems you get with ODBC, JDBC drivers. We know about other things like OData and some other ways to connect. The technology that you're using to connect to the data in Studio, you hit it spot on.
Well, thank you. I'll pass that on to the team, or they'll watch this video and cheer. But no, that's the goal. Pete said from the start, he called it ESS Plus because the way, from a user experience standpoint, that we may integrate the tables from Studio into Pro feels like ESS. You drop it into the relationship graph, now you can use it. But Plus meant that we own both sides of the data pipe. We own Studio and FileMaker, and we can do things the right way. We don't have to be dependent on drivers and somebody else in their platform. And while I don't know myself the underpinnings, and I haven't actually tried to go deep on it, but it's not surprising to me that when we look under there that, the guys are doing the right stuff.
I was really trying to test it with a million records and stuff like that, like I usually try to do when I start something new. But since you can't create data in it, you can't import data into it at the moment.
That's a lot of typing forms.
It would be a lot of typing forms, or creating a macro or something like that. But I was able to, there is a narrow little path that this is actually something that you could deploy and use right now in a solution.
We think so. I mean, we didn't release it with we tried to build a use case for it, or build around a use case that FileMaker isn't especially awesome at, right? Which is going out to an anonymous, potentially infinite supply of users over the web and having them submit data. It's not a forte of a platform that was founded on a local area network, right? And so we thought this is a great way to introduce a technology that complements, doesn't supplement or replace FileMaker, and make it better and start lightweight, right? And from there, we'll move forward with more complementary capabilities in the future.
If I create a database with Claris Pro and I created this connection of data and someone opened the database with FileMaker Pro 19, would the data be visible or no?
This is a really good question. And I'm not sure I have the confidence to say with certainty. My understanding is that in that file, I will, when I'm in Claris Pro, have my identity, and it will be associated with my ID, my Claris ID, in the context of Claris Pro. I don't believe it is shareable back to FileMaker Pro users at that point.
Yeah, nor is there's not a Claris Server 20 product yet either, is there?
Not yet, but there will be,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
And the main thing is that I believe you can actually access a hosted file today with it, but it will, in order to see the Claris Studio stuff, you would have to be in the context of Claris Pro as a client, because we don't have it rolled into Server or FileMaker Pro, nor will we, right? So, yeah, this is partly why we know that we have a transitionary phase.
Mm-hmm.
We want to build a FileMaker that can now enjoy the economies of scale and the new capabilities of native cloud-based technology, right? But we can't just wholesale take what we have in FileMaker today and do that without disrupting the infrastructure that people have already built their careers and businesses around for decades. And so it is wacky and something we're going to have to really be clear about over time, that we will have a Claris branded version of the platform and a FileMaker branded version of the platform, while people have the opportunity to say, okay, I'm not ready to go in the Claris stuff yet. I know I'm going to get there someday, but right now we are moving forward with FileMaker. We're releasing next week, 19.5.
Oh, okay.
Pete talked about it in the April webinar as well. He talked about 19.5 and our plans for 19.6. The update for 19.5 is coming really soon. It's a great FileMaker release. And so, yeah, we're continuing to invest in FileMaker. So anybody that's currently on the platform should be very confident in their future. We're not going to pull the plug on it.
Both products will exist in parallel.
They will have to live in parallel for a while. The experience inside them will be essentially identical per your earlier comment. Claris Pro is FileMaker Pro with a new name and the ability to get to all the cloud stuff. Right.
Okay. Let's see. Before I get into the roadmap, which is kind of the main thing I wanted to ask you about, I want to just throw one other thing out there. The data that's in Claris Studio. So when you see your data there, that's really truly modern cloud data. You don't have to build a server. You don't have to manage a server. It's always on, always replicated, basically never fail, just like you'd see with any other cloud platform. You don't really think about the server where your Google Gmail data gets stored. It's just there all the time. This is like that, right? You're using an industry strength, super fast database, blah, blah, blah. So this one thing that's always been sort of a challenge, having to maintain or manage a server or hiring a hosting company, is gone. And so
for that data, for sure.
If at some point in the future, all of our data in all of our tables on FileMaker Server now was in these other tables in Claris Studio, then we wouldn't need FileMaker Server anymore, because that would be our data source. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, potentially, yes, but that's not a goal of ours per se, which is to say we believe that there is differentiation, like there's value in our platform, and that we are so good at being on premise and we're so good at being offline. We've got probably the most powerful platform out there, anchored on low-code construction for doing local area network, on-premise, offline stuff, right? We're not just going to throw that away. But yeah, if you believe that the future includes ubiquitous connectivity without fail, then having your data in the cloud in a place that you can trust to always be available for you is fundamentally awesome and critical to your strategy. So having the way that we're modeling it, we'll have the ability to have both, right? Which is the great thing. You don't lose any of your FileMaker capabilities, but you start getting to taste and expand into the sort of cloud stuff. And then over time, as customers, we'll get to choose where we want our data to be.
Yeah, the dream for me would be to work with a customer to say, oh, well, we know where this is going to go. So this weekend, we're going to move the data in these 4 tables off of FileMaker Server and onto Claris Studio, right? And so we just move the data from here to there, update the information on the graph, and now that data is those data. If you're, depending upon what type of education you had in college, all the public health people I know refer to it as those data.
Those data.
Yes. Would then be available there. And then eventually, I really do see a clear, like for my applications, I would very, very much like to move it for many different choices, in all the places where the data needs to be on all the time, and I don't really want to deal with server. Okay, so roadmap. So today we know what we
I
have.
would say though, to make sure we don't confuse any listeners, I think that will be a possibility at some point in the future. It will be in the future though. Like right now, to make a FileMaker app, be its best, run like a FileMaker app. You're going to want your data in the FileMaker data store, right? In the Draco engine to get all the benefits that we've developed over 30 years. That I would take all my native FileMaker tables and project them up into Studio somehow and then use them. I don't know if I would do that, although we have some customers that live on ESS, right? All their data is in SQL. So it's conceivable. But yeah, I don't want to suggest that we're going to disrupt your ability to trust, believe in, and advance your solutions with your native FileMaker data either, right?
I think we'll have choice, I think is kind of what you're saying, right?
Yep.
And we know there's with ESS, because you don't control both ends of the pipe, there are some challenges and things you have to do.
Right.
Okay, so we know what we have now, and we know that there's going to be something coming out in fall. What will that look like, by the way? The fall release?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Like, I think I have ideas. I don't want to say with certainty, right? I want to set anybody's expectations. We have the Studio product out. We're going to evolve it very rapidly. I know that the engineering department has some priorities like bidirectional data exchange. One thing that we have to get Claris Pro into shape so that we can distribute it to customers in a reasonable fashion. We got to get the licensing right for this too, right? Like we're now bundling all these technologies together. What is the licensing scheme for it? And we don't want to make that any more complex, and so we have to figure that stuff out. We have data stores right now for the Studio technology that are on US West and only US West.
Oh,
we have got to get the data centers populated in other parts of the world. So there's a number of things that are definitely priorities. We will advance the form capabilities, I assume, so that people will be able to build more robust forms with bidirectional data as a piece of that equation. And then we have some other ideas for how we can use the build new capabilities into the Studio platform to augment FileMaker as well. So I expect all those things to come out. Pete said the fall. I've heard him say September as well. They're working really aggressively, and we'll see how that plays out. One thing that he did talk about in April as well, that with the new Claris identity built into Claris Pro, we will have the opportunity to potentially do a freemium version of Claris Pro. So one can download it, which is huge, right? It's a big deal because right now you want to get free access to the platform to try it out and learn it. You're, in a, what's our window now? Is it 45 days? 30
something like that.
Yeah, I haven't done a trial in years, so I apologize. Yeah. But you have a 45-day window or something to inspect it. If you don't get it done by day 45, you're out of luck for a couple of years until you get to try again. And so let's just remove all those impediments. We really want people to be able to get in, explore, play with the product, learn it. You can do anything you want with it too. There's no restriction until you deploy and share with others. That's the intention, right? So are we going to have that in September? I don't know, but it's coming. It's coming as rapidly as we can get it out.
Okay, so there's that. So what about the roadmap of things? How are we going to see things being added to Claris Studio in terms of what you can do with the forms? When we're going to actually have some script coding there? When we're going to see multiple tables? When we can link one form to another? Is there going to be like a monthly roadmap of those, or what's that going to look like?
Yeah, I think what we need to paint as a picture, and I think Pete's starting to do that. I know the engineers are starting to communicate is, what are the things that are on our backlog and on our intention list, right? And then the question we probably won't be able to adequately answer beyond a few months hence is when, right? Because you really kind of don't know until you get closer to it and you start getting certainty. But we know what we have all these priorities to extend the capabilities, get bidirectionality, calculation-like functionality, script-like functionality or automations, those are all on the radar. But in terms of when, goodness knows. So here's the thing. I believe that the pace that I'm hearing we're going to be delivering on is going to just be different than we have come to expect, right? Traditionally, prior to version 19, we would update our product every 12, 15, or 18 months, right? Back in 2003, I think it was a 24-month window. I remember doing the same demo at DevCon 2 years in a row.
So with the cloud product, though, you can just sort of add and turn on features. I mean, we see that with all the other things, right?
Yeah.
Slack, Zoom, Gmail, all these other things. They just say, hey, there's some new features that are here today. And they're there for the worldwide. And They don't break any of your current stuff. They just, now you have some additional functionality.
That's
It's not
exactly
like
right.
PHP where, things break.
Yeah.
It's modern cloud technology. So
But
I'm not really
you're
asking so
getting to the
much.
thing, right? That we'll get into a pattern where we're going to have to figure out a continuous communication
Mhm.
to update you and the audience about what's in the platform. Anytime that we print produce, if you will, documentation, it's going to be obsolete in a month. So
Right. Yeah.
we have to figure out ways with which we keep the communication live, help people understand what's out there.
Mhm.
And so I hope we get to do this more, Matt, like this kind of thing. And I'm sure we'll have other formal channels. We're meeting with all the meetups around the world, or as many of them as we can, as well as some other live streams and events. And I'm looking forward to this kind of new model of communication. But yeah, customers can expect they're going to see updates really rapidly.
Yeah. So I think my question wasn't so much when we're going to see the next update. It is, what's the schedule of updates going to look like? When they start coming in, will they be really small ones, like really, really agile, week by week, month by month? Is that the goal? I guess that's what I'm asking.
I have heard language in different circles about every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks. I don't know that we're going to have a specific, I don't know, formal agenda that, I don't know, update Tuesdays, first Tuesday of the month,
Right.
or, I don't think it's going to be something like that. I think it'll be when we're ready to push updates as needed, we will, and keep that, let's call it that train rolling, right? So.
Cool.
We'll see. I think by the time probably you and I get together next and do this, hopefully we will have seen the pattern playing out, right? And then we're going to be like, okay, I see it now. I'm getting with something pretty much every month, so that's pretty awesome.
And I do also, you hinted at it, I do foresee like a series of these conversations where, as it evolves, we look at it. And I'm mainly, what I do right now is a trainer. So one of the things I'm really looking forward to doing is helping the FileMaker community learn these things as they really are out there. So right now, there's not a scripting environment. There's not a calculation environment. When those things come out, I'm really going to want to have some classes and help people say, oh, here's how it works in FileMaker. Here's how it works in Studio. Here's how you can adapt it and link it best, so that you don't have to go figure it out. You can,
it is interesting.
That excites me a lot.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, and I think there's a challenge and an opportunity for developers that are used to the FileMaker tool set, in that we will get a new tool set for designing the forms and whatnot, right? And you said you built a YouTube video and you've seen it, but it's fun, right? Like, because it's so much more declarative. You go in and you're not saying I want a text field and then later figuring out the auto entry options and the display options and all that, right? Yeah. It's not 3 steps, it's one. Just give me checkboxes. Just give me a date picker or something. And it sort of puts all those things together in one fell swoop. So you just design it and go. I know Robert did an experiment internally where he took a form that we use internally as a survey tool at our company, built in FileMaker. So he already had it. He had a perfect spec because it already existed. And he rebuilt it in FileMaker, and he rebuilt it using Studio. And in FileMaker, I believe it took him about 45 minutes to get it all constructed and ready to go. In Studio, it took him 4 minutes and 7 seconds. Like that's a huge value add. So even though it's a primitive tool, it's interesting because then it gets you to the purpose of, like, who's it for, right? And for the advanced developer like yourself, like Robert, like our pro developers that are probably listening, this is going to just give you time back, right? For the right job, you're going to be able to get something done so quickly with this. Or it would be like, well, yeah, why wouldn't I do that? I can get that done in 5 minutes instead of an hour. Yeah, I'm all in, right? And on the other hand, though, it also, because the tool is just so much simpler, it offers us an opportunity to address a customer that we haven't really addressed in quite some time, which is the customer we used to address on that thing, right? Anybody could pick it up, convert a spreadsheet, and build forms, right? Now we've got a tool that would allow other people in your organization to potentially build forms, capture data, and have a basic list for you to start reporting on, right? So we have an ability to kind of go, I don't want to call it downstream, but to extend the platform out to the non-professional developer as well, in ways that we haven't been able to do in quite some time. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it really is. This is the biggest change. Well, I mean, we saw, Claris Connect a few years ago, but this is really a different thing than that. This is to me, it looks like it's the core. It's not just an add-on. It's the beginning of a seeds of a really, really core change in the product.
Yeah, I believe it is the future of the platform, which isn't to say that it is a replacement for what we all know and love, right?
Yeah.
But it is the thing that propels us into the next generation with the tools we already have and a new tool set that just gives us this new facility. So yeah, we're pretty jazzed about it as well. And we've been cooking on this thing for a while now, we're excited to bring it out.
Last night at the meetup, someone was talking about a FileMaker 6 to 19 conversion.
Oh yeah?
That he's in the middle of doing. I'm like, damn. And he said the client is so happy with FileMaker 6 because they've never lost data in all that time. That is one of the things I just love about FileMaker, right? And because I've certainly encountered a lot of those as well. Not in the last maybe 2 or 3 years have I done something that old. No, that's not true. I actually did one 2 years ago. For a museum. I love that. I mean, what else can you run, like that?
Yeah, there's no other platform that's been around as long as this. And yeah, you think about some of the apps that have been around for decades. It's just nuts, right? Custom apps. Hard to find a spreadsheet that's been around that long or another app that's been around that long on a different platform. So of course, we're proud of it. I was just going to say, I talked to a customer, golly, I guess it's been almost 2 years ago now, but we did a tour to just chat with customers and understand their perspective on our platform and what it really meant to them. And one of them was a developer in a university in the Northeast US. And they mentioned, kind of to your point, that they had a FileMaker server that had been running for 12 years and had gone down twice, and both times was human error. So, it is a platform people rely on and depend on. And we don't want to, we want to honor that as we move forward for sure.
I think most of my hosting customers have experiences like that too. It's just really rock solid, especially on cloud servers on AWS that we had done.
We say that, and then I always get a little nervous and have to acknowledge that there are times when we screw something up. I think when we had 19.1 out, there were some issues on the backups, and we got into some race conditions, but we fixed it pretty rapidly, right? Since Pete's been on the helm with the engineering team, the pace with which we've been addressing bugs has been pretty phenomenal compared to historical. In fact, 19.5 that's coming out, Pete mentioned in the presentation that there'll be about 400 bug fixes in there, which turns out to be accurate. And a lot of them are quality of life issues that people have been asking for a long time. Can you fix this little annoyance over here or that? Some of them are fundamental. But I don't know what percentage I would attribute to this, but most of the work in 19.5 has been about performance, stability, and security. Right. And so there's some just good fundamentals. WebDirect will perform faster. We got better memory management for it. We're doing some things on the web server side if you're hosting with Linux that will make it better. There's a lot of under the hood just tuning happening right now. And in part, we're doing that because we have to get the platform rock solid, refactored, and ready for this next generation that we're about to.
That makes sense. And there's still work being done on like WebDirect features, because those have actually been coming along really nicely in the last couple of years.
Yeah, WebDirect is still fundamentally important. One of the questions that has been coming up a lot since we started talking publicly about Claris Studio is, whoa, is this replacing WebDirect? Because I do a lot with that. And the answer is no, not a chance. If you want to take a richly realized FileMaker app experience out to the browser, that's not Studio, right? Not today. It could be a couple of years down the road or something, but not today.
Right, yeah, that's clear.
WebDirect is a critical part of the portfolio as well.
Right, yeah. I mean, we've got some major apps developed with that as part of the solution, right? The perfect scenario for WebDirect is a core application that's complex, that requires the FileMaker client, and then a more public-facing application that's only a portion of it that's optimized for WebDirect or Go or something like that. That's another really sweet spot for the product line. So, what things did I not ask you that I should have?
Oh my gosh! One thing that I found, and I hope that we haven't conflated this. We were talking earlier about confusing customers, right? With all the craziness that's going on between Studio, the parallel platforms. What does that mean? One element of language that we're going to have to be super crisp on is distinguishing the concept of cloud in general from the thing that is FileMaker Cloud, right? I think there was a webinar or something that Pete attended. I can't remember exactly which, but he was asked a question regarding the ability to put Claris Studio on-prem. And Claris Studio is native cloud, but it will support on-prem. You can use it with Claris Pro with no cloud or server deployment. You can use it with a hosted server on-prem in Claris Pro and use the Studio stuff. But the question was, can I put Studio on-prem? And the answer from Pete, if I recall correctly, was that we are building it such that we can do that at some point. It is not our immediate priority to do that. We have got to get the
my answer would be hard no. Forget it.
Well, we have a lot of customers, though, that rely on us for on-prem, and on-prem is a huge differentiator for our platform. Like customers use us. There's a customer, Matt, some years ago there, we sent out another Matt that was on my team, and he went out as a systems engineer to help them with an issue. And he had to get into a room after going through a security check with somebody using FileMaker, and they had to sit in chairs facing away from each other. So he had his back to the person in their computer, and the person would work on their computer and ask questions over his head that Matt would try and imagine what he was seeing, right? So we have customers that have very secure deployments of our platform in places where they have to have on-prem. So going back to the original thing, though, the question was, can Studio be on-prem? The answer is at the outset, no, but we're building it so that it could be. If that's a business priority for us, we could do that at some point. But we have had customers who heard Pete say that, and what they heard was, I cannot use Claris Studio I need FileMaker Cloud. Right. I can't use it with FileMaker on-prem. And that's not true, right? So FileMaker Cloud is different than just the idea that Studio is a cloud property. Connect is a cloud property. There's no dependency between FileMaker Cloud for deploying your apps and Studio. And I hope the audience, if there's anybody out there who wasn't sure about that, gets that. Right. I don't need FileMaker Cloud to use Claris Studio.
Yeah, that's okay. So, that was clear to me, but I'm glad you brought it up to for others. So, wow, another question. Oh yeah. So FileMaker Cloud and using your own hosting with building your own AWS or whatever, or running a server on-prem, none of those really meet one particular definition of cloud, which is the single point of failure of the FileMaker server Draco engine. Even though it doesn't go down often, you do still have to do OS updates, and there's things even with FileMaker Cloud with the Claris offering that you have to take it down for, right? And you can have every single component be redundant all the way up into the operating system and the instance of FileMaker server. So I don't know if it's really cloud because of that. So I think that last step has to be.
Appreciate your concern on that. Totally get
it. Not a concern. I think it's just a definition, maybe.
Yeah, no, and I understand it definitionally, for sure. This will not be a situation for Studio, nor for Connect, right? Potentially. I think it really is. It is about the Draco engine and kind of how it works. Certainly, we've advanced that platform so that like in 19.5, we have parallel backups to perform backup performance and other things to help mitigate in cases of disaster recovery, whatever you might need. But yeah, understood.
Yeah, I really love having built a bunch of AWS servers that every single thing that you think of as a physical thing is actually not a physical thing anymore. It's actually a metered product. Right. RAM is not RAM, disk is not disk, OS is not OS. They're metered products, and you get charged by the unit.
Compute, right?
Yeah, data. Yeah, it's really. I mean, you, like a hard drive, expanding a hard drive in AWS can be done while the server's running. It's like, oh, we're almost out of space. Let me put 50 gigs more on there, and go into the OS and increase the partition if it's Windows, and then poof, you have more space. Yeah,
for sure.
It doesn't work like that with the.
It's a whole different world, right? Compared to where we were 20 years ago. For sure.
So what else did you want to talk about? I think you and I just covered 2 hours of material in 50 minutes because we both talk almost as fast as Trevor Noah.
I know. It is a challenge I've had my whole life. I'm trying to work on it, man. It's a continuous improvement for me. I think no other immediate topics are coming to mind that we're just missing today. But I appreciate the time to talk a little bit about Problem Solver Circle, and that we have 2 weeks left, I guess, with which customers can get in. And then on Claris Studio, we've got a lot more coming. So I look forward to having more of these conversations. And some of it is seeing is believing and understanding. So I really appreciate you doing the video out there, and we'll get more and more communications on it.
Do you think that deadline might shift?
For the release of Studio?
No. The 2 week deadline for signing up for Problem Solver Circle.
Okay. So why would you want that to ship?
Well, because I have some clients who are still in the deciding phase, and they might not be able to be convinced by the end of June. And I'd really, for their sake, I'd like to have another month or so.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think that in part, this program, had some sort of experimental qualities to it. And we wanted to get in and see what might happen, and didn't want to open it up forever in case we didn't like it. And if it didn't work for customers, created a bad experience or something. But so I think right now we're holding to the deadline, which I think is the 24th. But we are taking feedback from folks like yourself, and we have had a number of partners that are coming to us with the larger organizations that do require a little more time to digest and understand and make the call. We may try to do some sort of extension on it, or Matt, we may look at it and say, what worked here, and can we come up with sort of a variant program that makes it easier for other customers? So we're looking at all angles right now. So no promises, but yeah, we may open the door a little bit for customers. Just if time was the real limitation, and they really do want in, we'll take that, see if we can't make something happen.
Okay, cool.
Because really, I think we believe it's all positive, right? And so we're not trying to be restrictive, maybe to the 500 customer limit, which I don't know if we'll get to, but I can tell you we've had many more than 500 calling us with interest in the platform. So I think we tapped into something, and it's a good learning. So hopefully we'll be able to do more things like this in the future.
Cool. Thanks so much for your time. It's always great to talk to you. It's been really long times, either in person or online. So
likewise. And I don't want to sound like I'm disappointed he's not here, but I hope Mr. Petrowski's doing good as well, and I can catch up with him soon too.
Yeah, he's on vacation, but yeah, the next one we'll definitely have him a part of the video and audio as well.
Right on. I appreciate what you guys are doing with the talk and the chance to be here. So let's do more of this, and if we can get some other folks from Claris out, we're happy to support.
Now I'm missing Matt's sultry closeout music that always comes up at the end of the episode. I'm not putting music on this one though; it's just going to go up. All right.
Right on that.